Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another third, or no, this is Tuesday night. Sorry. Welcome to another Tuesday night edition. Uh, as you know, I read horror stories on Tuesday nights. And tonight I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to read a few horror poems, some of my favorites, and maybe describing them as dark poems would be better. And of course, the first poet that always comes to mind is, of course, Edgar Allan Poe. But there are other dark poets, and my favorite is hey Chaz, Kelly, Scott, DeBronzo, Stephen. I assume you guys can hear me and see me. Anyway, one of my favorite poets is Robert Frost. Probably actually my favorite poet. And so I'm going to read a few of his poems tonight, and and a couple by Poe probably to finish up. First thing I'm going to read though is an article way back uh, 12 years ago by Matt Carden on his old website. He's on Substack now, I believe. But this is at teamingbrain.com. He's got a lot of good stuff there. And the title of this, yeah, check out that and check out his Substack. But the title of this article, short article, is Robert Frost as, quote, terrifying poet of a frozen inner landscape. From the Chronicle of Higher Education, a deeply moving, lovely, and troubling meditation on Robert Frost's Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, by literature professor H. William Rice, whose father, a Methodist minister, suffered through a transformative depression when Rice was a child and read Frost, among other things, in order to cope with it. Most of this article is quoting Professor Rice. So here's the first quote. This is the first poem I remember reading and appreciating. I first read the poem because my father told me to. He was a Methodist minister and a bit more intellectual than most ministers. I thought if I read the books he read, I would be smart. But the Frost book he pointed me to was different. It turned out he read it to cope with depression. I can relate to that. I can still remember the tattered paperback with white-haired Frost, who was born 139 years ago on March 26th. I guess that would be 151 years now, looking wistful on the cover. My memories of that period in my father's life are vague, but I do remember how he changed. Subtle qualities of his laugh, his smile, his very presence vanished and never reappeared. There was the father I had before his depression and the father I had after. He was always a good parent, a dutiful husband, and a diligent minister, but the man who survived depression was chastened in ways I could never describe with words. Peering into the poem's ominous shadows with my students, I found that world a scary place. It is the darkest evening of the year. The only sound is the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. For the person who is depressed, the somber winter landscape mirrors the dark, frozen world inside. It could seem as if one has finally gotten to the heart of life itself and there is nothing there. At the celebration of Frost's 85th birthday, Lionel Trilling described Frost as, quote, a terrifying poet. When I first read his work, I would have wondered what could be terrifying about snow falling in the woods on a winter's evening. The landscape of the poem reminded me of a Currier and Ives print, or possibly a Thomas Kincaid. But Frost captures the essence of depression in the poem's understated simplicity, as if depression itself is the ultimate understatement, the inability to see anything beyond a frozen landscape. So, anyway, that's at theteamingbrain.com, and there's a lot of good articles there. So check that out. Now, you know what? I'm going to start this off with something simple. I was rewatching one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes the other day. It's could be the creepiest. Uh, and it's called Listen, Peter Capaldi's Doctor. And near the end of the episode, he quotes this poem, which I think Stephen Moffat just wrote himself. Uh, Clara actually describes it as a nursery rhyme, but that's okay. Both are probably true. And it goes like this. What's that in the mirror or the corner of your eye? What's that footstep following but never passing by? Perhaps they're all just waiting. Perhaps when we're all dead, out they'll come a slithering from underneath the bed. Probably a little simple for Frost, but that's okay. I like it. All right. I want to start off with a poem by Frost called My November Guest. My sorrow, when she's here with me, thinks these dark days of autumn rain are beautiful as days can be. She loves the bare, the withered tree, she walks the sodden pasture lane. Her pleasure will not let me stay, she talks, and I am fain to list. She's glad the birds are gone away, she's glad her simple worsted gray is silver now, with clinging mist. The desolate, deserted trees, the faded earth, the heavy sky, the beauties she so truly sees. She thinks I have no eye for these and vexes me for reason why. Not yesterday I learned to know the love of bare November days before the coming of the snow. But it were vain to tell her so, and they are better for her praise. Interesting rhythm here. For this poem, there's 5 lines in each stanza, and they go A, B, A, A, B. I think on all of them. Of course, the simplest poem is A, B, C, B, you know. Yeah, it's A, B, A, A, B in all 4 stanzas. Interesting. All right, so there's one. Like I said, when you talk about dark poetry, everyone automatically goes to Edgar Allan Poe, and that's fair. I mean, he wrote a hell of a lot of macabre stuff, but it's just good to read a few other dark poems sometimes. Now, I'm sure you've heard this one before. This is one of my favorites. Acquainted with the night. I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I have looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed by the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet when, far away, an interrupted cry came over houses from another street, but not to call me back or say goodbye. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night. I love this poem, but one of the most interesting things about it is how in the third stanza Frost implies something dark going on another street. When he talks about I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet. So he hears this cry and he stops walking and listens. And it's not just a cry, it's an interrupted cry. It's just it's really cool. That's my that's my that's one of those fancy words us poet readers use. It's cool. Oh, interesting side fact if you care. Uh I once won first prize in a nationwide poetry contest, and first prize was great because it was $100 gift certificate to Barnes and Noble. So this was, gosh, 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more. I came in the house and Danielle said, "I have some news for you," something like that. And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You won a poetry contest." And I was like, "Huh? I didn't enter a poetry contest." And she's like, "Yeah, I know. I entered you without you knowing, and I didn't want to say anything. And they just contacted me and said you won first prize." So that's pretty cool. So at least I've done that. Haven't finished my novel yet, but I've done that. No, it'll be out this year. That's a promise. All right. Well, some of us do that, DeBronzo. Others of us have the skill of picking horrible movies for Pete Rollick to watch and comment on. Now, I think that's the greater talent, but this is, this is all I can do. All right. Fire and Ice. If you're familiar with poetry, you probably knew I was going to read this one too. And it's very short. You're blushing, huh, Mike? All right. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. You know, the world may end in fire, but the universe will end in ice. But not tomorrow or even this year. Uh, I'm going by memory now. I'm not going to quote the whole poem, just a couple of lines. And I can't even remember which poem it is by Frost, but it just two lines. It seemed as if a night of dark intent was coming, and not only a night, an age. All right, let's see what else I got here. Oh, yeah, this one is interesting. And unless you're a poetry nerd like me, you may not have heard this one. Uh, I assume I'm not boring everybody with dark poetry since you're here. And so thanks for spending part of your Tuesday night with me. Oh, I will be here on Thursday night. As usual, I'm feeling better than I did last week. However, we won't be here on Sunday because it's my Danielle and I's 30th anniversary, and we're going to go out of town. We think we are. We're still making last minute decisions. But my guest is Philip Gillott. Now, you may know that Philip Gillott has some really cool video interviews coming up on his Substack. And I want to, my plan was to interview Philip on Sunday because they're available to subscribers on Monday. And man, they are bloody cool. Seriously. He's very talented. Um, but I emailed Philip a little while ago and said, "Hey, I screwed up, and I want to see if he's available tomorrow." So uh, I'm going to have the Sunday podcast tomorrow. It may just be me and him, but of course, I'll tell my panelists any of them are welcome to join if you want to. DeBronzo. Oh, thanks, Kelly. It's not actually our 30th wedding anniversary. It's the 30th anniversary of the night we met. Really cold Iowa winter night and late at night. But that's a story for another day. And then we married a year and a half later. So this coming September, it'll be 29 years of marriage, but really 30 years since we've been together. So anyway, all right, this one's called Desert Places. Snow falling and night falling fast. Oh, fast. In a field I looked into going past, and the ground almost covered smooth in snow, but a few weeds and stubble showing last. The woods around it have it, it is theirs. All animals are smothered in their lairs. I am too absent spirited to count. The loneliness includes me unawares. And lonely as it is, that loneliness will be more lonely ere it will be less, a blanker whiteness of benighted snow, with no expression, nothing to express. They cannot scare me with their empty spaces, between stars, on stars where no human race is. I have it in me so much nearer home to scare myself with my own desert places. That last stanza, excuse me, struck me as a bit cosmic horror, has for years. And not only that, the first two lines strike me as your cosmic horror, what's out there in the universe. And then the last two lines hit me more of the Laird Barron type of cosmic horror, that's all earth-based, you know, what unimaginable forces and beings here on earth. Um, I remember one time several years ago, I think it was when one of the telescopes went up. I can't remember what, it was probably the latest one. I can't remember for sure. Anyway, people were posting about it on social media, and I saw Laird post kind of in response to, people in our group were talking about cosmic horror and what's out there and, crap like that. And eventually Laird responded with, yeah, and there's, that kind of horror here on Earth too, which if you read his fiction, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, like here's the first two lines again of the last stanza. They cannot scare me with their empty spaces between stars on stars where no human race is. There's the out there cosmic horror. And then here's the barren cosmic horror. I have it in me so much nearer home to scare myself with my own desert places. And hopefully Laird never watches this, because if he does, he's rolling his eyes at me about right about now. So, Um, we'll discuss this hopefully tomorrow with Phil, but Laird's one of the writers that gets interviewed. So is Paul Tremblay, quite a few others. Let me find my list here. Here's another article you might want to look at. I won't read you this article. You can look at it at your leisure, but what I will do, now that I think about it, is put it here in the side chat for you. And the article is titled, where'd it go? It's not titled Where'd It Go? It's titled America's Great Poet of Darkness, a reconsideration of Robert Frost at 150 from last year. It's in the Hedgehog Review, Critical Reflections on Contemporary Culture. So there's some homework for you. And then, of course, you know the stopping by woods on a snowy evening one. And I think that's pretty dark too, but you've probably heard that one a million times. Um, I'm looking for, oh, yeah, in a disused graveyard. I didn't have it pulled up, but luckily I remembered the title. All right. In a disused graveyard, the living come with grassy tread to read the gravestones on the hill. The graveyard draws the living still, but never any more the dead. The verses in it say and say, the ones who living come today to read the stones and go away, tomorrow dead will come to stay. So sure of death, the marbles rhyme, yet can't help marking all the time how no one dead will seem to come. What is it men are shrinking from? It would be easy to be clever and tell the stones men hate to die and have stopped dying now forever. I think they would believe the lie. And let's see, I gave you that article. You guys had enough yet? Where Snicks will mix. What are you saying? God no to no podcast this Sunday. I'm trying. I'm gonna try and make it up to you guys and have one tomorrow if I can. I'm just waiting to hear back from Philip. I'm gonna try to have it in the next couple days. Let's put it that way. I gotta work around his schedule. DeMaranzo, what could you possibly be doing that's more important than listening to me yak on? I won't be too much longer. I think now that I've hopefully sold you on reading more Robert Frost, now I'll go and read a couple of Poe poems. I know. You're fired. All right, this one might be my favorite Poe poem. Poe poem. That guy was born to write poetry. Alone, Edgar Allan Poe. From childhood's hour I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. Yeah, you've been fired a lot, but you keep coming back. I think you fired me too, and I kept coming back. Anyway, from childhood's hour I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone, and all I loved, I loved alone. Then, in my childhood and the dawn of a most stormy life was drawn, from every depth of good and ill the mystery which binds me still, from the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff or the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. Uh, you know, both really. He's into horror. Let's put it that way. He's not into the same kind of horror I'm into, but yeah, Logan comes by it honestly, man. He listens to a horror story when he goes to bed, just about every night, like I do. All right, here's another obvious one, and another one of my favorites. A dream within a dream. Hey, Marianne. All right. Take this kiss upon the brow. That's for you, DeRenzo. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, this much let me avow. You are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope has flown away in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep, while I weep. O God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? That is Edgar Allan Poe's simulation argument long before Nick Bostrom was even born. So that's a joke. And yeah, let's see what else I want to read before I'm wrapping up. I know you got to go to Bronzo, but Raven is of course obvious. But that's a long one. I'm not gonna. And you guys have probably read that a million times. If you missed me at the beginning, uh, I said that I recently rewatched a Doctor Who episode called Listen, and it's really, really creepy. And even if you're not into Doctor Who, if you're into horror, which I assume you are, you'll enjoy it. Uh, all you got to know is he's this alien that time travels, and he usually takes an Earth friend with him. That's really all you got to know to enjoy the episode. Oh, I was going to say, I remember a long time ago, the first time I watched John Carpenter's The Fog, and he, right at the beginning on the screen, he quotes, uh, is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream. And I thought, man, I am going to love this movie. And I did. So thank you to Bronzo for the Fog poster. It's right over there. Really pulls the room together, you know? Just like Lebowski's rug. Let me see if I got anything else. Yeah, as it should. I don't think I do. I thought I had one more Frost poem. Give me a second. And I don't think I don't think all of them are in the public domain yet, unlike Poe's. So technically, I don't know if I should be reading these or not, but they're all over the internet, so I'm probably okay. You know what? I will do this. I will end up I will finalize with um, stopping by woods on a snowy evening, just because I love it so much. All right. You know, this is just I I love this with all of my Iowa soul. Whose woods they are might help if I could read. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Yeah, Chaz, that may be his most popular one. That's the one, if any, that everybody has heard, and for good reason. It's incredible. Okay, I read it in a disused. I know. I found the one I was missing, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to read the first stanza. This is from a poem called uh, Birches. Yeah, Into My Own. And the first stanza reads like this, and you horror people will appreciate this one too, I think, especially weird fiction lovers. One of my wishes is that these dark trees, so old and firm they scarcely show the breeze, were not as 'twere the merest mask of gloom, but stretched away unto the edge of doom. Robert Frost is saying, that's my wish. So yeah, he's a dark poet. And I think that's all I got for tonight. I will see you guys on Thursday, possibly see you tomorrow. I'll keep everybody updated. If you don't know, there's a mailing list I have that you can get on, and the link is in the show notes. And you can unsubscribe anytime, and you will only get an email from me when there's a podcast coming up. Reminder. So yeah, good to see you, Chaz. So sign up for that if you want to stay in the loop. And like I said, it's in the show notes. Thanks for spending part of your evening with me. Uh, have a good night, everybody, and have a great Wednesday.